Well, obviously, Donald Trump has some shoring up of confidence to do. He's going to be meeting with Henry Kissinger within the hour to sort of shore up his foreign policy credentials. But he also needs to, perhaps more importantly, to the surveys like that FT one I told you about and to what this professor was talking about, really shore up economic doubters who aren't convinced that talk of a trade war, tariffs, and the like will ease their concerns. So the first signs now, according to our Charlie Gasparino, that Mr. Trump is responding and listening and already indicating who some key people are. Charlie, what do you got?
Right, and this might be one way to soothe the fears of the markets, because we do know on Thursday, sources have confirmed to the Fox Business Network, that there's a meeting between Trump advisor Jeff Sessions, the senator, as you know, key advisor to Donald Trump, with supply-side economists Larry Kudlow and Steve Moore. As you know, Larry Kudlow and Steve Moore have been longtime supply-side economists. They're out there pushing for lower taxes, less regulation. They're not pushing for a trade war with China, but we do know on Thursday they're going to meet with them. Here are some caveats we should point out, Neil, that first off, Trump has had a rocky relationship with these two conservative economists over his tax plan in the past. Not that they have personal animus. There's not that. I think they personally like each other. But when they came out, when Moore and Kudlow came out and pointed out some deficiencies in his tax plan, that it might cost more, they might leave a budget deficit, that he needs to close some loopholes. We should point out that the Trump campaign quickly shut down their suggestions. But what we see now, amid renewed worry about some of Donald's economic plans, some of his statements on taxes, you know, he's been doing some flip-flops on that, especially where the rates are. We do see another reach out by these two. They're going to meet with Jeff Sessions on Thursday. We understand they still consider themselves unofficial economic advisors to Donald Trump. And like we reported yesterday, Neil, you know, he is in the middle of putting together a much more formal campaign finance team and economic team. We're going to see some more details in the future. If Larry Kudlow and Steve Moore are on that team, I mean, that goes a long way into people worrying about, you know, whether Donald Trump is pro-growth or anti-growth, because these are pro-growth.
No doubt about that, but doesn't he need, I'm taking nothing away from either gentleman's considerable regard and economic heft, doesn't he need like a big bank CEO, or for that matter, just a big financial powerhouse player, influential player, Paul Volcker type, if that really means anything these days, to further up his heft?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, this is just the beginning. These guys are, you know, these guys are really smart. They're very, you know, they're economists. I mean, what you need is someone like, remember when Barack Obama came on the scene in 2008, what soothed the fears of a lot in the business community, not that it turned out that way, but what soothed the fears initially was he put together kind of an economic team led by Paul Volcker. And he came out, and Paul Volcker and Larry Fink over at BlackRock, who's the CEO of BlackRock,
Warren Buffett, remember that?
Yeah, and they all came out and said, guess what? Mr. Obama is not a radical. You know, he does not adhere to Bill Ayers and stuff like that. And they soothed the fears of the markets, and a lot of people voted for him because of that. And I think Donald needs the same thing. Your last guest was fascinating in this sense. I would say, if the business community is fearful of a Republican, you know, that tells you a lot. My one quibble with what he said is that, you know, getting rid of Dodd-Frank is something that the business community does not want. That would give fear to the business. That is just the opposite.
And by the way, in the survey, that wasn't universally shared among those who were concerned about Donald Trump. What is interesting, though, is that there's a higher road and a higher mark, a bar, if you will, for Donald Trump to climb. And it would be akin to what Bill Clinton did with the first budget deal when he came into office, where he famously said, I guess we're all Eisenhower Republicans now, to modify the bond market. That Trump needs to do something like that well before he to his hope, gets into office. I think
what your guest said in the last segment was fascinating, and right on this. He has not made it easy on himself. I mean, I'm telling you that Donald Trump, if he really wants the business community to get behind him and think, okay, this guy is, you know, this guy has some coherent plan, is he has to come out with a coherent plan. He's got to stop flip-flopping. And I think one way to do it is to meet with guys, which he's doing with like Steve Moore and Larry Kudlow, who are pretty smart. I will say this, though. They've ignored their advice in the past, and that's where this thing gets pretty gets dicey. And you know, we were talking yesterday, Neil, about Mark Cuban saying the market was going to go down 20% if Donald Trump got elected, or something along those lines. it's not out of the ordinary if you have a guy preaching protectionism all over the place on taxes and, you know, saying some crazy stuff about debt for the markets to go down. And I think your last guest backed that up.
Yeah, we'll see. And again, on this survey, that cut a broad swath in that business community. We'll see. Thank you, my friend, as always, Charlie Gasparino.